I think because sometimes when I start a lesson and I'm trying to kind of catch people up, I don't think I'm going to go that far, and I end up going a lot further than I think, and then we don't record it. So I got to learn how to just go ahead and turn it on. All right. So if you're at James 4:4, what does it say?
Ye adulterers and adulteress, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is an enemy of God.
Okay. Put that into context. Try to understand it from a personal standpoint. Think about it for a moment. Friendship with the world is enmity toward God, right? So at what point are we not, or do we have not, do we not have a relationship with the world? At what point do we not have a relationship with the world? Because not just live,
We exist
we were born
into the world.
in the world. And remember, because we were born in the world, what is the greatest influence in our life?
The world, the sin,
Sin. I was born in iniquity and in sin, and so she brought me into the world through sin. In the world, what three things are in the world?
the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life.
So those things are imprinting on me the whole time as I'm growing up. No matter how good my parents were or are, the more I grow and the more I begin to have an existence in the world, I have to go and be at somebody else's house. Somebody else is going to have opportunity to talk to me or to put or exemplify some things in front of me that I may receive from them that didn't come from my good parents, right? And now I get a little older, I got to go to school. And now I'm with peers who don't live in houses where parents are trying to teach their children good things, right? And I'm exposed to that, and they're telling me some things that sound
Good.
and I just,
Want to try them too.
and so the more exposure I get from grades 1 to 12, the more I'm impacted by the things that are around me. And so if that's the case, how do I not have a relationship with the world? I have a connection to them. I have a connection to what's out there. All that's in the world are those things. I have a connection to that because I've learned that. And when I get saved, I know that God has washed me clean. But remember we read Hebrews 9 last week, where it talked about that he has to purge. What is it that purges our conscience from dead works? The blood of Christ. It has to purge our conscience so that we stop seeing ourselves as only being able to do that one thing because that's what I've been taught, or that's how I grew up, or that's what I was told I'm able to do, or that's what I'm told I'm not able to do. Because whatever somebody has told me over the years, that's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Guess what that is? And who's controlling that?
The world.
The enemy, right? Because he's the God of this world. So if I'm in the world where he's the God, then how much has he influenced my life? How much does he have? How much contact with me has he had? when I would do good,
Evil is always
it's
present.
always present. So, when James says, friendship with the world is enmity
with God.
He's making a declaration that in our mind we have to understand when we are allowing ourselves to be in league with the world. Because we're so used to it that if we don't pay attention, we'll do it without even considering what we're doing. Because it's just a part of our relationship. It's what we have done all the time. And he knows that. And he's banking on that. So God has to talk to us continually to say, you got to renew your mind. Right? You don't be conformed to what everybody else is doing. Well, it's hard when all of the fashion, and I go out there, right, and my wife goes to the store with my daughter, and my daughter says, but this is the trend. Yeah, this is the latest fashion. And so, it might be a little higher than what we're thinking, or it might be a little lower than what we're thinking, because maybe she's a little bit more in tune with where the world is, and right? Because it doesn't take much for you to look at Yahoo, right? And then Yahoo starts to show you that Kardashian family, right? They're kind of the trendsetters, right? You got the youngest one that's a supermodel, done made millions and millions of dollars already, ain't done a thing, right? Right? And so she's a trendsetter. So now all of a sudden, you see her go from a young lady who was, kind of buttoned in and long dress and, kind of presenting her age with some conservativeness. Within a few years, she's wearing a dress that's all cut out over here. And, in order for, because she don't wear no bra, right? So in order for it to not flop open to show her her cleavage, no, it's more than cleavage, to show who she is, right? They have to put tape in there to hold it. But the younger the kids are, the less they want that tape to be there, and they don't care whether, because it's a fashion statement, right? They're wearing sheer clothing to a public outing because they want people to see them this way. They want you to look and see if she really got panties on. They want you to look, right?
Some of them don't look like they got
And so that they know that the dudes are going to look a little longer, right? Right. But that's because the enemy knows that there is a part of us. If I'm too close and I shake it a little bit too much, you're right. If I drop it like it's hot, yeah. So, right, I start getting used to those phrases, right? And so I want to be 100, whatever that means, right? But we hear it and we understand. After a while, we understand what it means, right? And we start getting drawn in because that's the way he brings us in league, in friendship, because the connection is still there. We have to know that it's time for us to break the connection. But that's hard to do when everything we're doing throws a tentacle out at us, trying to bring us back.
All the time.
Yeah, kind of like that commercial where that guy's on the boat, and the boat is getting ready to go down, and one of his beer kegs falls over the side, so he jumps over the side to go save the keg, and there's a
Big whale out there.
well, not a whale, there's a octopus out there when he goes,
Yeah.
right? And the way that they show the commercial is they're like, okay, that wasn't probably such a good idea, right? But in the end, he is so protective of that keg of beer that he overcame the octopus because that beer meant that much to him. Right? And they're on the beach having a memorial service for him, and he comes out of the ocean.
With the beer.
With the that stuff gets imprinted in our head, right? It really does. And the more we see that kind of thing, the more we see and understand and connect the dots, and it becomes, there's some advertising that we don't even see. They used to do subliminal. That's a hard word to say. Subliminal. I said it right that time. Right?
What is that?
Messaging. Where they, and what they would do is in a commercial, they would put one frame that says, go to McDonald's. One frame in the commercial of something else, right? Or one frame in the show that you're watching that says, go to McDonald's. Just one frame, because they were conducting an experiment to see if your subconscious could see it. Because your conscious mind can't pay attention to it because it's going by so fast. But your subconscious caught it. And they wanted to see how many people they could make go to McDonald's. And they found out that your subconscious would catch it. And the next thing that would happen, there'll be a whole bunch of people going to McDonald's. Why? Because they were given subliminal messaging. And that's what the enemy is doing, because he's coming to us in a state. Our spiritual mind wants to stay connected to God. So he comes to us in our subliminal, in our natural mind, the mind that we're trying not to pay attention to. But that's the one he sends a message. Because he can't get through on the line that God is talking to us in, because he doesn't have that code. He can't get in there. So, but he knows he still has a pathway. That's right. He knows he still has a pathway. So, the scripture don't call him the God of this world for nothing, because he has that kind of power. He's not omnipresent. He's not omnipotent. He's not omniscient. But he has enough deceit. He has enough ability to make us think that he can, because of how much connected the world is to the things that we're weak to. How great the world is to that. How connected the world is, because everything you see here depends on those three things. It depends on that.
In working with or growing up, they didn't show that kind of stuff on TV. Now they show everything.
Well, yeah. Remember they just had the, what was that? Was that the Grammys that they had on TV a week or two ago? And the one girl's name was Cardi B, and the other girl's name was 3 Horse Stallion or something like that. I ain't quite sure what her name was, but they were performing some kind of erotic display in a song that they were singing together, because they wrote the song, I guess, and they've done it together prior to that. And from what I was told by one of the guys that I was working with, he said, you don't really want to hear the real words to the song because it's raunchy. And instead of the people, the censors on television try to keep you from hearing all the curse words. Now they don't bleep out as much as they used to. But the censors are the one that control that. But I don't know that they understood what was about to happen. And so then during the presentation of this song, they roll out this big bed. Both of them get on top of the bed, and they started performing as if there was some kind of sexual act together. Boy, they said the phones lit up when that happened. Well, yeah, it should have. But if you keep doing it, guess what happens?
They gonna start calling.
People they'll start considering to be normal.
It's gonna be normal.
It'll just be normal. And the more normal the enemy gets us to see things, the more he can have access to imprint on us what he wants. And the more he imprints, the more we start to have fellowship. So that's why when I wrote down some of these things about, I say you have to have an opinion, right? So if somebody were to ask us to state our opinion, what side do you stand on abortion? Well, is it right or wrong? As a basis.
Wrong.
Okay, wrong. But what happens if rape or incest?
Right, a child is raped.
Mm-hmm. And they get pregnant because of it.
Well, it's still her baby, or she does up to her, or she wants to do.
But that child was conceived out of a violent act.
She was attacked. Something she didn't want.
And should she then be forced to carry the child of a person that she don't know, and that was violent toward her and did something to her that she did not want?
Yeah, that just be,
I don't know, but it's still a life.
I understand, but.
Okay, still alive, that's true. But the world says we can't just think about the life, we have to think about the person
The child that had done to her.
and how that woman or young woman or whatever age she was, what happens to her mentally and emotionally for her to be made to carry that child. And then how then does that child be brought up in an environment where maybe that child is being told that you were mistaken. I didn't want you, and I hate your dad, and I don't even know who he is, and I could care less what you do. And is that the environment that you want that child to grow up in?
No.
So the world says we got to think about all of that. But what does God say?
It's a life.
It's a life.
It's a life.
It becomes difficult. Because you start, at some point, it's going to have an immediate impact on the pro-lifers, the women's rights people, because the people that have abortion clinics, wherever they are, right? They are under constant threat. From who? The pro-life people. Because the pro-life people are supposed to be
against abortion.
They're supposed to be Christian folk. So when is it all right for them to firebomb a building?
with people in it.
And with people in there, or to shoot people because they performed the abortion? When is it right for them to cross that line? But that's what happens. So shouldn't we think about what people do in response to that? Because if we make a law that says you have to, then they have to go get it in a place, then a woman has to go get an abortion in a place where it's seedy and she can... Oh, but she shouldn't have been down there in the first place, right? So, that's the whole idea of the world, is to make that clear-cut issue not as clear-cut anymore. Because there's other issues that's gotta be dealt with. The world says you gotta deal with these other issues. God says a life is a life. You don't give it.
He does.
You ain't supposed to take it.
God gives life.
And he doesn't give us the authority. We take it. We do take life. But that shouldn't be our focus. So if this occurs, maybe the right way is for that child to be born and then to be
Put up for
put
adoption.
up for adoption.
Yeah, but that child,
There is no real
Yeah.
solid answer.
it's
But
not-
what does God say about life? Does he ever condone abortion?
No, no.
So we have to make a stand, but the world doesn't want you to be able to make a stand. Because there's so many other issues that you gotta consider. Because, you know, it's just, you know, and if we don't, if we choose not to consider it, then we are inconsiderate. And then the world looks at us as, well, how are you representing a God that's supposed to love, and you can't even love a situation where somebody was violently attacked and understand their position in it? Well, it's not just about one person. And it's not just about how one thing has affected you. But if you try to bring that out, you're going to get a backlash. And it might be a violent one. Are we prepared for that? So if we're not prepared for it, guess what the easiest thing to do on that subject is?
Not talk about it.
Not talk about it.
Talk about it.
Let's just not talk about it.
Because it's too hard.
Well, who wins if we don't talk about it?
Nobody.
Oh, the devil. The devil wins.
World.
Because he keeps you from putting in that must be, that seed that says God doesn't want us to
Give.
Yeah. That's why, that's how strong this situation and this thing is when he's dealing with it, because remember one of the things Paul reminds us is don't be ignorant,
His device.
and one of his device is to cause so much of conflict in the conversation that you don't even want to go there anymore. Let's just not even talk about it. But if you don't talk about it, how do you get it solved? But that's what happens in the world. We don't solve anything because nobody wants to talk it off. Nobody wants to talk it through. So you got people that are in lawmaking positions that says, I don't care. I don't want to say that wrong. They don't say, I don't care that people got shot. What they say is,
It was unfortunate.
and I pray and I hope God will do something about it. No, God isn't the one that's supposed to do something about it.
We are.
So if we don't do something,
Won't be done.
it won't change. And if it doesn't change, then people are going to continue to get killed until they keep getting closer and closer to you. And at some point, somebody you know is going to be on the business end of that gun. And then what you gonna do? You're gonna still think that's a Second Amendment right, that everybody, nobody should have their guns taken away from them, even if it's an assault rifle that was meant for war, and we're not in war? The person that used the gun is not somebody who the government has trained to be to go into war and do that kind of job. We're not in, that's not what we ask him to do. And so why does he have 30 clips that have 100 rounds in each of them? And he's up, and he's got 30 guns, right? And he's up in the tower in a room in Las Vegas, and he's just picking off everybody.
At a concert.
Or he's a young, early 20s boy, man that's got a mental problem, who's been at home with his mother, but he knows where the gun is, and he's able, he knows that he goes out and makes sure that he has a whole lot of bullets to go with him, and he goes to the school that's right down the street, and he kills 5, 6, 7-year-olds. But that's okay, because he deserves to have a right to have a gun. Well, what about that child that now her and his right have been taken away from him for a life that they should have had the opportunity to live? Are you saying that his right is more than their right? But nobody wants to have that argument, because the gun lobbyists are putting money in my pocket, and I'm benefiting, and I'm not ready to say what the truth is. And as long as we don't want to have that hard argument so that we can make some solutions to the problem, then the devil wins. And people keep getting killed, and children keep getting killed. And we keep saying, our thoughts and prayers are with you, and everybody keeps saying, that don't mean nothing. It don't mean nothing. When you had the opportunity to make a difference, you chose not to. And you want me now to take your condolence that says you're sorry? You ain't sorry. If you're sorry, you'd have done something about it when you had the chance to do it.
You still ain't trying to.
Right? And so as long as it stays in that place, then the enemy knows he's going to keep the world moving in the direction he wants it to go in. That's why he's the God of this world. So it's a fascinating thing to understand, and to understand where Paul is talking to us from. And when I hope you've gone into the 2nd and the 3rd chapter. If you haven't, go ahead and do it. Right? And because there are some key phrases and catch words that we need to see out of that really help open up our understanding of how Paul saw his situation. Where was Paul at when he wrote Philippians? Does anybody know?
He was in Rome, in jail.
He was in Rome.
In jail.
So that means that he had already done 3 trips, 3 missionary journeys, right? Those journeys had already been completed. He had been in front of Festus. He had been in front of Felix. He had been in front of, who was the 3rd one?
King
Agrippa, right? And all of them really could have let him go, but
he didn't bribe them.
because that's right. Felix said, "I would have let you go if you'd paid me something," but no, you didn't. I'm gonna let you hang around here till Festus come in. And Festus says, "Paul, I think much learning has made you mad, buddy, but you're still going to see, right?" Right? And Agrippa says, "I'm gonna come back in the season because Paul, you almost persuaded me to be a Christian, right? Almost persuaded." But nobody wanted to let him go. He is on a boat. He is shipwrecked in the ocean. He finds there on the island. He gets bit by the snake, right? I mean, and he finally makes it to Rome. He's not under lock, right? Because when he first gets there, he actually has. He has enough liberty to where he can walk around. But the longer he stays, the more they start restricting that liberty. So now
When
Paul
he
is,
first got, when this was, Philippians, I thought he was in stock. Or they
and
said he
the
was-
longer he stayed there, the more his liberty was restricted.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't tell us exactly when he wrote the letter, but he had been there long enough for him to be now in prison. So he is in stocks, and they are, periodically they're still beating him. Right? He's in stocks. And he knows that they're about to take his life. So guess what? Is he fretting about him losing his life?
No.
He starts to write letters. I want to encourage you all. Don't look at the thing that's in front of you. Don't look at the guy that's standing there that's ready to beat you with the rod, but look at the people that still need to be saved. Look at the people that are still hung up in their life, and Jesus can make a difference if you just continue to be who you're supposed to be. Don't pay attention to what people are saying about you. You just stay focused on doing what Christ has called you to be, and that is an example, a light to the world. You keep being a light. You keep having love. You keep being joyful. You keep staying in the spirit. You keep being encouraging and uplifting. And how do you do that when you're in jail and you're in stocks and you're being beat and your family is in threat of being persecuted and there's a lot going on. So there's a lot to think about. And that's exactly what the enemy wants to, he wants to cloud our minds with a whole lot of thinking. Instead of something that's just as simple as, for God I live. That's simple. It's easy to say it.
In that situation.
Yep, until you're in that situation. Yep. So, chapter 2, chapter 3, and we're going to finish out next week talking about this. All right?